Oh, well, I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, but then moved to just outside of Albany, New York. That's where I really grew up. And one day, I just came home from my first year at college, William and Mary down in Virginia, and I saw an ad in the paper. They wanted waitresses to work at the Otesaga Hotel in Cooperstown, New York. Anyways, I got the job. At that time, the Otesaga Hotel, which many of you maybe have been there because Cooperstown is the Baseball Hall of Fame is there. It's an elite hotel, or so they said. And it was run by a guy from Boston, from the Parker House. And it was a very strict job. I mean, when you came out after working, you were not to sit under a tree to rest for a minute on your way to the dorm. You went immediately to the dorm and took off your uniform so you didn't have any green, grass spots on your uniform. And I mean, it really was a big deal. Anyways, of course, the Baseball Hall of Fame, in the summer, people who were being inducted, where they would come for a weekend and their families and such. And there was an exhibition game between the National League and the American League and all this hoopla and everything. And so I guess what Greg wants me to tell you about particularly is two incidents. One is the night that I received the largest tip I've ever gotten in my life. Now remember, this is 1953. It was a buffet dinner, so everybody at the dinner got up and got their own food. All I did was pour water at the table. And then after they finished their main course, I had a little spiel. If you don't, the desserts are up there, you can help yourself. But if you would like ice cream or something, I can get you that from the kitchen. But nobody wanted that. And this party was just having a great old time. And then they got up and left. And the party was Dizzy Dean. Had just been inducted that day, that afternoon, in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And he was very happy. And speaking about happy, I couldn't serve drinks either. I was too young to serve drinks. So I did nothing but pour water. That was it. And say 2 sentences. And they got up to leave, and he started reaching in his pocket, bringing out a tip for me. And he just kept bringing money out and laughing and looking at me. And he left me a $40 tip. I guess he was pleased that he'd gotten into the Hall of Fame. Then the next morning at breakfast, I looked over at this table I had, and there was this grumpy old man sitting there, slouched down, and this young kid, my age, grinning. And I went over to ask them what they wanted for breakfast. And the old man, well, he was talking like that. And this younger guy was hiding behind the menu, laughing and winking at me, don't worry about him. Well, it was Casey Stengel was the one who was complaining, and it was Mickey Mantle, who was just his second year in baseball. And he winked at me. Hey, how about that? And the Yankees had lost the day before in the exhibition game. That's why he wasn't happy. But Connie Mack, all these people were at this dinner the night before, and it was quite an assemblage. And Connie Mack, as I understood from the grapevine during the dinner, was not somebody who was well-liked personally. And he sort of looked like a plucked chicken. He didn't have much hair at that point. I mean, he was older then.
Were you a baseball fan?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you knew what was going on.
Oh, yeah. And Mr. Detroit, I grew up a Dodger fan. I knew every average of every ball player every day, kept track of all that stuff. And my husband, who I didn't know back then, was a Giants fan. And you all know about 1951 and the shot heard around the world when the Giants beat Bobby Thompson, hit that home run in the 9th inning. And all our married life, I'd unexpectedly come in the door from something, you know, just walking in with the groceries or something, and I'd hear this voice yell out, "And the Giants won the pennant!" Screaming at me, you know, because he knew how much it annoyed me.
Number 1, the shot heard round the world.
Did you have the audacity to try to get autographs of the Otis saga? I mean,
nobody ever thought about that back in those days. We were polite and we just, you know, respected these players and we didn't even think about it. I worked there for 2 years. Then the next year I went the opposite direction. I went to Southampton, Long Island, posh, you know, money, 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 and worked at another great hotel. And I worked on Gary Cooper's Daughter's coming out party, and I remember Zsa Zsa Gabor got kicked out of she came down to the front desk with just, in the summer, with just a fur coat on, nothing underneath. And it was it's where all the tennis players hung out back there in like around 1954, 55. That was Tony Trabert and all those guys. So they were always at the restaurant hanging around, and it was just a whole different thing.
How was their tips?
So-so. 1954. And I came around the corner and he was hustling with somebody else coming the other way because he had to get there to speak. And I just plowed right into it. And I said, "Oh," you know. And then I said, saw who it was, and I said, "Hi." Said hi back. That was it. And then in 1980, my husband ran for Congress. And just as we were getting ready to come back to Jamestown from Washington, D.C., where he was at a Republican candidate school, they called it, at a hotel in Northern Virginia. And they made an announcement, if you want to get your picture taken with Ronald Reagan, get over to the steps in front of the Republican National Building there in Washington. Well, a friend of mine who we were staying with was going to take us to the airport. And she said, well, we'll just drive over by there, and, you know. So we got over there, and of course, they had closed off the street. And here's this building right in the middle of the street with the steps and people gathering, you know. And the street's empty, except for a couple policemen. And they have sawhorses things at the end, you know, blocking it off. And Joan, my friend, said, oh, what are we going to do? Jim won't know where we are, you know, if they make us go out of sight, you know. So she put on her best Washington, I know who I am and you better get out of my way voice. And she said, we're in a hurry. We've got to take the congressman. Of course, he wasn't a congressman. We got to take the congressman to the airport immediately after the picture taking. Again, security. This is 1980. Oh, all right. They moved. So we drove in and we parked right across from the steps going into the building. So now picture this place. Here's a big, long street. There's like 3 or 4 policemen kind of wandering around, a car parked there, and then these people up on the steps. And around the corner comes a limo. And Ronald Reagan gets out. At this point, one of the policemen had gotten tired enough that he was leaning back on the car that we were in. And so Ronald Reagan, seeing an opportunity to get your vote, came over and shook hands with the policeman. And while he was shaking hands with him, he noticed these 2 women in the car. So he looked at us, so we rolled down the window. His hand shot in the car. Vote for Ronald Reagan. No, I mean, he said, oh, so nice to see you, and whatever, whatever, whatever. Can you imagine that? Turned around and went across the street. And we sat there laughing. Policemen had no clue that we were nobodies. You know.
Well, this is great. So thank you for pausing and sharing.
Okay.
Barbara de Blair, Sue Abdella.
All right.